She was tied in a corn crib for disobeying, until a cowboy freed her and took her home. The morning began with soft light moving across the wide fields of corn, turning every leaf into a line of gold. The farm rested in a quiet place far from towns and busy roads. The air smelled of earth and dry grass, and the only sounds were birds calling to each other and the wind brushing against the tall plants. In this quiet world lived a young woman named Clara. She was known for her calm eyes and steady hands, but also for her strong spirit. She believed that every person deserved to be heard, even in a place where silence was often expected. Clara woke before the sun most days. She tied her hair back, slipped on her worn boots, and stepped outside to start her work. The farm had many rules, and most of them were strict. Everyone who lived and worked there followed a clear order. Older voices made the choices, and younger ones were expected to listen. Clara tried to respect this system, but sometimes she felt it pressed too hard on her heart. She saw people treated unfairly and felt a deep pull to speak when something did not seem right. That morning the air felt different. There was a heavy stillness that made her uneasy. As she walked toward the main barn, she noticed a small group gathered near the fence. Their faces were serious, and their voices were low. She slowed her steps, listening from a distance. They were talking about a decision that had been made, one that would affect a young boy who worked on the farm. The boy had made a small mistake, nothing more than a simple slip, but the response planned for him felt too harsh to Clara. Her chest tightened. She stepped closer and spoke, her voice clear but respectful. She said that everyone makes mistakes and that kindness could teach better than fear. The group turned to look at her, surprised. Some faces showed discomfort. Others showed anger. One older man, known for his firm ways, stepped forward. He told her that this was not her place to speak. The rules were clear, and they were not open for discussion. Clara felt her hands shake, but she did not step back. She repeated her words, softer this time, asking them to think again. The silence that followed felt long and heavy. Finally, the older man turned away, and the group began to move, leaving her standing alone. She knew in that moment that her choice would bring trouble, but she also knew she could not have stayed quiet. The rest of the day passed slowly. People avoided her, and the farm felt colder, even though the sun was warm. Clara worked in the fields, her mind filled with worry. She wondered what would come next. By evening, when the sky turned orange and pink, two workers approached her. They spoke little, only telling her to follow them. They led her across the farm to an old corn storage shed at the far edge of the land. It was a place rarely used, quiet, and hidden by tall rows of plants. Clara's heart beat fast as they opened the door. Inside it was dark and smelled of dry husks and dust. They told her she needed time alone to think about her actions. Before she could speak, the door closed behind her. She stood in the dim light trying to understand what had happened. The room was small but safe, with a single narrow window near the roof that let in a thin line of fading daylight. She sat down on a pile of old sacks, pulling her knees close. Fear and sadness mixed inside her, but so did a small spark of hope. She told herself that this moment would not last forever. As night fell, the farm settled into silence. Stars filled the sky above the cornfields, and the wind whispered through the leaves. Clara listened to every sound, her senses sharp. She thought about her family, her dreams, and the simple wish she had always carried to live in a place where kindness ruled over control. Far from the shed, a cowboy named James rode along the edge of the property. He was traveling from one town to another, taking small jobs to earn his way. His horse moved at an easy pace, and he enjoyed the calm of the open land. He had planned to ask for work at the farm the next morning, hoping to stay a few days. As he passed the tall rows of corn, he noticed something that caught his attention. A faint sound, almost like a soft call, drifted through the air. He slowed his horse and listened. The sound came again, gentle and unsure. James followed it, guiding his horse carefully between the plants. He reached the old shed and saw the small window near the top. A soft light glowed inside. He dismounted and stepped closer, calling out in a low, friendly voice. Inside, Clara heard him and felt her heart leap. She stood and moved toward the door, speaking back, telling him she was there and needed help. James felt a wave of concern. He asked what had happened, and Clara explained in simple words. She told him about speaking up, about being sent here, and about how she only wanted things to be fair. James listened, his face serious in the moonlight. He had seen many places in his travels, and he knew that not all of them treated people kindly. He told her to stay calm, and that he would find a way to help. He looked around the shed, checking the door and the old block. It was not strong, only meant to keep animals out. With careful effort, he managed to open it. When the door creaked open, Clara stepped out into the cool night air. The stars above felt brighter than ever. She took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief and disbelief. James offered her his jacket, and she wrapped it around herself, grateful for the warmth. They spoke quietly, making a plan. James knew they could not stay there. He offered to take her with him to his small home a few miles away, a simple place where she could rest and think about what she wanted to do next. Clara hesitated, thinking about the life she was leaving behind, but she also felt a pull toward the chance for something new. She nodded, trusting the kindness in his eyes. James helped her onto his horse, and they rode away from the farm, the cornfields fading into the darkness behind them. The road ahead was unknown, but for the first time in a long while, Clara felt a sense of hope guiding her forward. As they traveled, she told him more about her life, her hopes, and her fears. James shared stories of the places he had been and the people he had met. The night passed slowly, filled with quiet words and the steady sound of hooves on the dirt path. By the time the first light of morning touched the sky, they reached a small cabin near a stream. It was simple, with wooden walls and a porch that faced the rising sun. James helped Clara down from the horse and opened the door. Inside, the air smelled of fresh wood and coffee. Clara stepped inside, feeling both tired and safe. She sat at the small table while James poured her a cup of warm drink. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the birds outside and the gentle flow of the water nearby. Clara looked around the room, taking in every detail. This place felt different from the farm. It felt open, peaceful, and free. She smiled softly, knowing that this was only the beginning of a new chapter in her life. Outside, the sun climbed higher, lighting up the world with a promise of change. Clara held that promise close to her heart, ready to see where this unexpected path would lead. The morning light filled the small cabin with a soft glow. Clara sat quietly at the wooden table, holding the warm cup in both hands. The steam rose slowly, and she watched it like it was a sign that life was still moving forward. Outside, birds hopped along the edge of the stream, and the water made a gentle sound that felt calm and steady. This place felt safe, but her heart still carried the weight of everything she had left behind. James moved around the room, careful not to make loud sounds. He understood that Clara was still trying to feel at ease. He placed a small plate of bread and fruit on the table and gave her a gentle smile. She thanked him, her voice soft but full of meaning. It had been a long time since someone had done something kind for her without asking for anything in return. As she ate, Clara began to talk about her life on the farm. She spoke about waking up before the sun, working until her hands were sore, and always watching her words. She explained how rules shaped every part of her day, and how speaking out had always been risky. James listened closely, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. He did not interrupt. He could hear the strength in her voice, even when she talked about fear. James then shared his own story. He told her about growing up in a small town where everyone knew each other. He talked about how he left to see the world beyond the hills and rivers of his home. He worked many jobs, met many people, and learned that kindness could be found in unexpected places. Clara listened with interest, her eyes bright with curiosity. After breakfast, James suggested they step outside. The sun was higher now, and the air was fresh. Clara followed him onto the porch, where the world opened wide in front of her. The streams sparkled in the light, and tall trees stood like quiet guards around the cabin. She took a deep breath and felt something inside her relax for the first time in days. They spent the morning walking along a small path near the water. James showed her how to spot animal tracks in the soft dirt, and how to tell which birds made which sounds. Clara laughed softly when a rabbit darted across their path. The simple joy of the moment made her forget, just for a while, the fear she had carried with her from the farm. But as the day went on, her thoughts began to return. She wondered what was happening back there. She worried about the young boy she had tried to protect. She also worried that people might be looking for her. The idea made her stomach tighten. James noticed the change in her face. He asked if she was feeling all right. Clara hesitated, then told him her fears. She said she did not want to cause trouble for him. She did not want his kindness to bring him harm. Ah, 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 ah. James looked out at the trees for a moment, thinking carefully. He told her that every choice comes with a risk, but some choices are worth it. He said he believed that helping someone in need was never a mistake. His words gave Clara comfort, even though the worry did not fully leave her heart. That afternoon, James went to a nearby town to gather supplies. He left Clara at the cabin, showing her how to lock the door and where to find water and food. Clara spent the time cleaning the small space, wanting to help in any way she could. She swept the floor, wiped the table, and arranged the few items on the shelves. The simple work made her feel useful and grounded. While she worked, memories from the farm came back to her. She remembered the faces of the people she had lived with, some kind, some distant. She wondered if they missed her, or if they were angry. She thought about the fields of corn and the long days under the sun. A part of her felt sad, even though she knew she could not go back. When James returned, he carried a small bag of food and a few supplies. He told her the town had been quiet, but he had heard some talk. People mentioned that someone from a nearby farm was missing. Clara's heart skipped a beat. James quickly added that no one seemed to know much, and there were no signs of a serious search. Still, the news brought a wave of tension into the room. That evening, they sat by a small fire outside the cabin. The flames danced and crackled, sending light into the darkening sky. Clara wrapped James's jacket around her shoulders again, feeling the warmth. They talked about what she wanted to do next. James asked her about her dreams, the ones she had kept hidden for so long. Clara took a deep breath and spoke slowly. She said she wanted to learn. She wanted to see places beyond the farm. She wanted to help people, especially those who felt small and unheard. Saying these words out loud made them feel more real. James nodded, impressed by her courage. He told her that the world was wide and full of chances, but it also required strength. He said he could help her reach the next town, where she might find work or a place to stay. Clara felt both excitement and fear at the idea. As the night grew colder, they went back inside. Clara lay on a small bed near the window. She watched the moon through the glass and listened to the stream outside. Her mind moved between hope and worry, but she held on to the thought that she was no longer alone. The next day they prepared to travel. James packed his horse with supplies, and Clara helped tie the bags. Before leaving, she took one last look at the cabin. It had been a place of safety, even if only for a short time. She felt grateful for it, and for the man who had brought her there. They set out on the road together, the path stretching ahead like a line into the unknown. The sun was warm on their backs, and the air was filled with the sound of wind and distant birds. Clara felt her heart beat faster, not just with fear, but with a growing sense of purpose. Along the way, they met a few travelers. Some offered friendly waves. Others asked simple questions. Clara stayed close to James, still learning how to move in a world that felt so open and unguarded.
Every step felt like a small victory.
As evening approached, they reached a hill that overlooked a small town. Lights began to appear in the windows of houses, and smoke rose from chimneys. Clara stood still, taking in the sight. This town represented a new chapter, one filled with choices she had never been allowed to make before. James asked her if she was ready. Clara took a deep breath and nodded. Her fear was still there, but it no longer controlled her. She had found her voice once, and she knew she could find it again. Together they walked toward the town, their shadows stretching long behind them. The road they had traveled had already changed them both, and as they stepped into the glow of the first streetlight, Clara felt that her life was finally beginning to belong to her. The town felt alive in a way Clara had never known before. Soft yellow lights glowed from windows, and the streets carried the quiet sounds of evening life. People walked in small groups, talking and laughing in low voices. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. The smell of fresh bread and warm meals drifted through the air. Clara held her breath for a moment, taking it all in. This place felt open and full of chances, but it also felt unfamiliar and a little frightening. James led her down the main road, past a small shop with wooden shelves in the window, and a place where horses were tied near a fence. He told her they could stay at a simple guest house for the night. Clara nodded, staying close to him. Every face that passed made her wonder if someone recognized her, even though she knew that was unlikely. Her heart still carried the fear of being found and taken back to the life she had left behind. At the guest house, a kind older woman welcomed them. She gave them a small room with 2 beds and a narrow window that looked out over the street. Clara thanked her quietly and set her bag down near the wall. The room was simple, but it felt safe. That night she lay awake, listening to the sounds of the town outside. She wondered what tomorrow would bring. In the morning, James told her he needed to look for work. He said it would be easier if they both had a way to earn and stand on their own feet. Clara wanted to help, so she went with him. They walked from shop to shop, asking if anyone needed an extra pair of hands. Some people shook their heads. Others said to come back later. Clara tried not to feel discouraged. Finally, they reached a small place that sold bread and simple meals. The owner, a woman with kind eyes and flour on her hands, listened to Clara's story. Clara did not share everything, but she spoke about wanting to learn and work. The woman nodded and offered her a chance to help in the kitchen and serve customers. Clara felt a rush of relief and gratitude. This was the first time she had been given a choice instead of a command. James found work helping a man fix fences and care for horses. They agreed to meet later in the evening. As they parted, James wished her luck, and Clara thanked him for everything he had done. For the first time, she felt like she was standing on her own, even if only a little. The day at the small shop was busy but rewarding. Clara learned how to knead dough, wipe tables, and greet people as they walked in. Some customers smiled at her, and a few asked her name. Each friendly word helped her feel more like she belonged. The work was tiring, but it filled her with a sense of purpose she had never felt before. As the sun began to set, Clara stepped outside to take a short break. She looked down the street and saw James walking toward her. She felt a wave of comfort seeing his familiar face. They met near the doorway and he told her about his day. He said the work was hard but honest. Clara told him about the shop and how she liked learning new things. They walked back to the guest house together, talking about simple dreams. James spoke about maybe settling down one day, finding a place to call his own. Clara spoke about wanting to keep learning and helping people. Their words felt light, but deep inside both knew that the past still lingered behind them. A few days passed, and Clara began to feel more at home in the town. She learned the names of regular customers and found her way through the streets without getting lost. She even started to smile more easily. But one afternoon something changed. While she was wiping the counter, she noticed two men standing outside the shop. They were talking quietly and looking around in a way that made her uneasy. One of them glanced at her through the window. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and Clara felt a chill run through her. She did not recognize them, but something about their presence felt wrong. That evening she told James what she had seen. He listened carefully, his face serious. He said it might be nothing, but it was better to stay alert. They agreed to be careful and not draw attention to themselves. The next day, Clara saw the men again, this time near the market. They were asking people questions. She could not hear what they were saying, but she saw them point toward the road that led out of town. Her heart began to race. She felt sure they were looking for someone. Fear returned, heavier than before. Clara went back to the shop and tried to focus on her work, but her hands shook. When James came to meet her that evening, she told him everything. He did not hide his concern. He said they might need to leave the town, at least for a while. The idea of leaving so soon filled Clara with sadness. She had just started to feel like she belonged. But she also knew that her safety mattered more than comfort. That night, they talked for a long time in their small room. They made a plan to travel farther, to a place where no one knew her story. As they packed their few belongings, Clara felt a mix of emotions. She was grateful for the town and the chance it had given her, even if only for a short time. She wrote a small note to the shop owner, thanking her for the kindness and the opportunity. Before sunrise, they left quietly. The streets were empty, and the town was still asleep. Clara took one last look at the buildings and the road she had walked so many times in the past few days. She held the memory close to her heart. The journey was harder this time. The road was long, and the weather changed often. Some days were warm and bright, others were cold and gray. Clara and James shared stories to pass the time. They talked about their families, their pasts, and the people they had met along the way. These talks brought them closer, building a bond of trust and understanding. One evening, as they rested near a small river, Clara asked James why he had helped her back at the farm. James thought for a moment before answering. He said he believed that everyone deserved a chance to choose their own path. He told her that seeing her stand up for someone else had reminded him of the kind of world he wanted to live in. Clara felt tears fill her eyes, not from sadness, but from gratitude. She realized that their meeting had changed them both. She was no longer just someone running away. She was someone moving toward a life she wanted to build. As the stars appeared in the sky, Clara looked up and felt a quiet strength inside her. The road ahead was still uncertain, and fear had not fully left her heart. But hope had grown stronger. They sat by the river, listening to the sound of water and the night around them. In that peaceful moment, Clara felt that she was no longer defined by where she had come from, but by where she was choosing to go. The days on the road began to blend together. Clara and James moved from one quiet path to another, following dirt roads, crossing small bridges, and resting near open fields or gentle streams. The world felt wide and open, but also full of unknown turns. Each morning, Clara woke up, unsure of where they would end the day. At first, this feeling scared her. Over time, it started to feel like freedom. One morning, they reached a small village surrounded by rolling hills and tall trees. Smoke rose from chimneys, and the sound of a bell echoed softly from a distant building. The place felt calm and welcoming. James suggested they stay for a few days to rest and find work. Clara agreed. She was tired from the long journey and curious about what this place might offer. They found a simple place to stay near the edge of the village. The owner, a gentleman with a warm voice, gave them 2 small rooms and wished them well. Clara thanked him, feeling grateful once again for the kindness of strangers. That same day, they walked through the village to look for work. James found a farmer who needed help repairing fences and caring for animals. Clara visited a small schoolhouse where a woman was teaching a group of children. Clara watched from the doorway, listening to the sound of young voices reading and laughing. The teacher noticed her and asked if she would like to help. Clara felt nervous but excited. She nodded. The teacher gave her a small stack of books and asked her to sit with a few children who were learning to read. Clara knelt down beside them and began to sound out words slowly and clearly. The children looked up at her with wide eyes and shy smiles. In that moment, Clara felt something warm and strong in her heart. She realized she loved helping others learn. Over the next few days, Clara returned to the schoolhouse each morning. She helped the children with their letters, listened to their stories, and encouraged them when they felt unsure. The teacher praised her patience and kindness. Clara started to feel like she had found something meaningful, something that felt like it could become part of her future. James noticed the change in her. She walked with more confidence and smiled more often. In the evenings, they sat together and talked about their days. Clara spoke about the children and how proud she felt when they learned a new word. James spoke about the farmer and the hard but honest work in the fields. But even in this peaceful place, the past still followed them. One afternoon, while Clara was walking back from the schoolhouse, she saw a group of travelers entering the village. They looked tired and dusty from the road. One of them asked for directions. Clara answered politely, but her heart began to beat faster. She could not explain why, but a familiar fear rose inside her. That evening, she told James what she had felt. James listened carefully, then went to speak with the village owner. He asked if anyone had been asking questions about a young woman traveling with a cowboy. The owner shook his head and said no, but he promised to keep an eye out. The next few days passed quietly, but the feeling of being watched did not fully leave Clara. She tried to focus on the children, on the simple joys of the village, and on the peaceful mornings and soft sunsets. Still, her eyes often drifted to the roads leading in and out of the hills. One night a heavy storm rolled in. Rain fell hard on the rooftops, and thunder echoed across the sky. Clara sat in her room, listening to the sound of water hitting the window. She thought about how far she had come and how much she had changed. She was no longer the girl who stayed silent on the farm. She had learned to speak, to choose, and to hope. The next morning, James came to her door with a serious look on his face. He said he had heard from the farmer that two men had been asking about travelers who passed through the village. They were not from the area and seemed to be looking for someone in particular. Clara felt her stomach tighten. She knew deep inside that they could be looking for her. They sat down together and talked quietly. James told her that staying might put the village and the people they cared about at risk. Clara did not want to cause trouble for anyone who had shown her kindness. The thought of leaving the children and the teacher made her heart ache, but she knew the choice she had to make. That afternoon, Clara went to the schoolhouse to say goodbye. She did not tell the children everything, only that she had to travel again. The teacher hugged her and thanked her for all the help she had given. The children waved and gave her small drawings they had made. Clara held the papers close, feeling tears in her eyes, but also pride in what she had shared with them. As the sun began to set, Clara and James packed their belongings. The village felt quiet, like it was holding its breath. They thanked the owner of the place where they had stayed and promised to remember his kindness. They left as the sky turned deep blue, walking along a narrow path that led into the hills. The air was cool, and the stars slowly appeared above them. Clara felt both sadness and strength in her heart. She was learning that moving forward sometimes meant leaving good things behind. The journey through the hills was slow and tiring. The paths were steep, and the wind was strong. But the higher they climbed, the wider the world seemed to become. From the top of one hill, Clara looked back and saw the village lights glowing softly in the distance. She whispered a quiet thank you to the place that had helped her grow. As they rested near a small fire, James asked Clara what she wanted most now. Clara thought for a long time before answering. She said she wanted a place where she could stay, where she could help others, and where she did not have to run anymore. James nodded. He told her he knew of a town near the edge of a river, a place known for being open and welcoming. He said it might be a good place to start again. Clara felt a small spark of hope light up inside her. They spent the night under the open sky, wrapped in blankets and listening to the quiet sounds of the hills. Clara held the drawings from the children in her hands and smiled softly. She knew that every place she had been had left a mark on her heart. As the first light of morning touched the horizon, Clara stood and looked toward the river town that James had described. The road ahead was still long, and the past still followed behind her. But she felt stronger now, shaped by every step she had taken and every person she had helped. With a deep breath, she and James began walking again, carrying with them not just their belongings, but the growing belief that somewhere ahead, a lasting home and a peaceful life were waiting to be found. The road to the river town felt different from all the paths Clara had walked before. The air was softer, and the land slowly changed from hills to wide-open fields. Tall grass moved like waves in the wind, and the sound of water could be heard long before the river came into view. Clara walked beside James, her step steady and her heart full of quiet thoughts. She felt tired, but also ready. When they reached the edge of the town, the river shone in the sunlight, wide and calm. Boats rested near the shore, and people moved along the banks, talking and working. The town felt alive, but not rushed. It felt like a place where stories could settle and grow. James smiled as he looked around. He told Clara that this place had always been known for welcoming travelers and giving people a chance to start again. Clara held on to those words as they walked across the small bridge into the town. The wooden boards creaked under their feet, and the sound felt like a quiet greeting. They found a small place to stay near the river, owned by a woman with silver hair and kind eyes. She listened as James explained they were looking for work and a place to rest. The woman nodded and offered them 2 simple rooms and a warm meal. Clara thanked her again and again, feeling the comfort of kindness settle over her like a blanket. That evening, Clara sat near the river, watching the water move past. The sky turned shades of gold and pink as the sun began to set. James sat nearby, cleaning his boots and humming a soft tune. The moment felt peaceful, like the world had slowed down just for them. The next morning, they began to look for work. James found a place at the docks, helping move supplies and care for the boats. The work was hard, but he liked the steady rhythm of it. Clara walked through the town, asking if anyone needed help. She passed a small building with open windows and the sound of young voices inside. Her heart jumped. It was another schoolhouse. She stood at the doorway, listening to the teacher guide the children through their lessons. The teacher noticed her and asked if she was looking for something. Clara took a deep breath and explained that she enjoyed helping children learn and was hoping to find work. The teacher smiled and invited her inside. That day, Clara sat with a small group of children, helping them read and write. She felt the same warm feeling she had felt in the village before. The children laughed and asked her questions about where she had come from and what the river was like at night. Clara answered in simple words, happy to share small pieces of her journey. By the end of the day, the teacher offered her a regular place at the school. Clara felt her eyes fill with tears of joy. This was more than just work. It felt like a step toward the life she had dreamed of, a life where she could help others and feel safe at the same time. Days turned into weeks. Clara and James settled into the rhythm of the town. Mornings were filled with work, and evenings were spent by the river or walking through the quiet streets. People began to recognize them and greet them by name. Clara started to feel like she belonged, not as a guest, but as part of the town. One afternoon, Clara received a small letter from the teacher. Inside, the teacher thanked her for the care and patience she showed the children. She wrote that Clara had a gift for helping others feel brave enough to learn. Clara held the letter close to her heart, feeling proud in a way she never had before. James also found his place. The people at the docks trusted him and relied on him. He enjoyed the simple honesty of the work and the sense of being needed. In the evenings, he and Clara talked about their days, sharing stories and small victories. Bob, but even in this peaceful place, Clara knew that her past was still part of her story. One evening, as they walked along the river, she told James how afraid she used to be of making choices. She said she had lived so long under rules made by others that she forgot how to listen to her own heart. James listened quietly, then told her how proud he was of the person she had become. He said he had seen her grow stronger with every step of the journey. His words made Clara smile, and she felt a deep sense of gratitude for the path that had brought them together. One morning, the silver-haired woman who owned the place they stayed asked Clara to sit with her. She said she had noticed how kind and steady Clara was. She offered her a small room to rent long-term, a place she could truly call her own. Clara felt her breath catch. The idea of having a home, a real home, felt almost too good to believe. Clara talked with James about it later that day. She told him she wanted to stay in the river town, to keep working at the school and build a life there. James nodded, understanding. He said his life had always been on the move, but he was glad to see Clara find a place where she could put down roots. That night, they sat by the river one last time together. The water reflected the moonlight, and the town behind them glowed softly. Clara thanked James for everything he had done, for helping her when she felt lost and for walking beside her when the road felt too long. James smiled and said that helping her had changed him too. He said he had learned that sometimes the greatest journeys are not about the places you see, but the people you meet along the way. The next morning, James packed his bag and prepared to leave. Clara walked with him to the edge of town. They stood there for a moment, not sure what to say. Finally, Clara reached out and gave him a gentle hug. She told him she would never forget him. James tipped his hat and told her to keep being brave. He mounted his horse and rode down the road, his figure slowly growing smaller in the distance. Clara watched until he was gone, her heart full of both sadness and happiness. Clara turned back toward the town, toward the life she was building. She walked to the schoolhouse where the children were already waiting. Their faces lit up when they saw her. She felt a rush of warmth and purpose. As the day went on, Clara moved through her work with confidence. She helped children read their first words, listened to their stories, and encouraged them when they felt unsure. Every small success felt like a victory not just for them, but for her as well. In the evenings, she returned to her small room near the river. She decorated it with the drawings from the children in the village and the town, and with a letter from the teacher. The space became a reflection of her journey, filled with reminders of where she had been and what she had become. One quiet night, Clara stood by the window and looked out at the river. The water moved steadily, always going forward, never turning back. She realized that she was the same. She carried her past with her, but it no longer controlled her. She had found her voice, her strength, and her place in the world. The girl who once felt small and unheard had become someone who helped others feel seen and valued. The road that began in fear had led her to a life of purpose and peace. As the stars filled the sky, Clara whispered a quiet promise to herself. She promised to keep choosing kindness, to keep standing up for what felt right, and to keep building a life guided by her own heart.